Time to round up a big story from the week. More than $1 billion in both private and federal funds will go toward early childhood education in the United States. But Texas will not be included in that initiative. Earlier this week, the federal government denied Texas's application for up to $120 million. Federal reviewers graded Texas poorly on such elements of the application as far as how it would implement the proposals. Texas had proposed using grant money for a trial voucher program that drew criticism from education advocates and pro-business groups. So is early childhood education dead in Texas? That's our topic this half hour. We want to hear from you on our Fox 26 Facebook page and Twitter. Be sure to use the hashtag Fox26forlife. Joining us live in the newsroom is our Roundup panel led by our Fox 26 legal analyst, Chris Tritico. Chris, what do you think about what happened this week? Well,
it's a shame that Texas didn't get its share of that money, because it would have been gone a long way towards improving early childhood education in Texas. But the state of Texas and the Department of Education have a long-running battle since years ago when they gave Texas $4 billion, and the legislature took that $4 billion and used it to fund the education agency instead of using it to supplement funding. That caused a large problem with the Department of Education that we haven't recovered from yet. Governor-elect Greg Abbott ran his campaign, part of it, on early childhood education and said up until 2 weeks ago that he was going to go to this legislative session and fund early childhood education. Last week, Senator-elect Paul Bettencourt said, with the drop in oil prices and the oil revenue coming that the state generally relies on dropping so drastically, early childhood education is going to be a tough sell in the legislative session this year. So I don't know what's going to happen. I don't think it's going to get near the funding that Greg Abbott wants it to. Let me introduce our panel. Mustafa Tamiz, our political analyst. Jackie Bally, public policy analyst. Good morning again. What's going to happen? Greg Abbott has been saying since he started running that early childhood education was a priority for him. 2 weeks ago, he said, I'm going to fund this. Now Paul Bettencourt's saying that's not going to happen.
Paul Bettencourt is one person in the Senate, and he has every right to his opinion.
He's one person not yet in the Senate.
General Abbott has been very clear. He said, once I'm elected, he's made sure that education reform has been first and foremost in his policies. When he was campaigning, after elected, when he was laying out his priorities, he made sure, again, to reiterate that education is first and foremost. He has set out a lot of standards that he is going to try to implement. Getting more funding for education is one of them. He's been very clear about that. And so I do believe that General Abbott, Governor-elect Abbott, will continue on that road.
Texas has a huge budget surplus this year because of oil revenues. But with the price of oil dropping, rig count going down every day, it appears that Texas is headed for a slump if the slide continues. Is the legislature going to pull back on these promises that Governor Abbott made, or Governor-elect Abbott made in the campaign?
Well, this is going to be a test for Governor Abbott. I think we should just call him Governor Abbott. Governor Abbott, it's a test of leadership for him. He's gone out on a limb, and he has said he is going to do something about pre-K funding in this state. I think Speaker Strauss has been a big advocate of pre-K funding. What happens now is what will happen in the Senate. And when Paul Bettencourt comes out and makes a statement like that, you have to wonder, is he speaking for himself? Or is he, reading the tea leaves with Lieutenant Governor Patrick?
All right, let me go to Sally. She's monitoring our social media.
Okay, let's take a look at Twitter first, guys. We have a few tweets we're going to show you. First, this woman says it's a very sad for so many young students as Texas loses the bid for federal pre-K funding. And then our reporter, Greg Grugan, quoting the Texas State Senator-elect Paul Bettencourt, a very staunch fiscal conservative, that the expansion of pre-K faces major headwinds from the drop in oil revenue. That's what he talked about this week. But again, a lot of people say that you would see a huge return on your investment if you did expand pre-K.
Well, there's no question that pre-K education helps education all through the process to get the children in early and teach them early. But that takes a big financial commitment on the part of the state. And we're learning now, as we already knew, but seeing it in good hard numbers, Jackie Bally, that Texas economy relies on oil revenues. And people are scrambling right now with the economy of Texas maybe dropping pretty drastically with the oil price of oil dropping.
But it is maybe. We're not quite sure where we're going to be. We don't know what the reserves are going to be. And the governor has said that, governor-elect has said that a percentage will go into education. That is his goal. And you see a lot in the legislature, many people on the right and on the left who are in agreement with him. He has made sure that he set his standards for third grade. That's supposed to be the benchmark. He wants to make sure that the third graders are elevated as far as their reading and their math skills. He wants to make sure that our high school dropout rate is decreased. He wants to make sure that we have an accelerated group or an accelerated curriculum for what the standards are right now. Early childhood is part of his entire education platform, which is what I'm talking about. And then the dollars will go into education, including early childhood.
The Texas, it seems, lost out on this huge grant from the federal government because they wanted to put the money into a voucher program that wasn't intended for what the grant was. And so once again, we've lost out on something because of our unwillingness to do what the federal government says this is what the money's for.
Well, that's been consistent, whether it's Medicaid expansion where we lost $70 billion of money that would go on to health care, or something like this where over $100 million would go into pre-K. We consistently want to do things in a way that is not consistent with federal policy, and that's what's going to happen. But the bigger issue in this is a real test for Governor Abbott. He has gone out on a limb to talk about this, and if you don't learn to read by third grade, he knows, and we all know, that you don't have a chance of success, that you're less likely to graduate from high school. So he has to figure this out, and if he can't figure this out because the Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick won't let him figure it out, then you know who's in charge in the state. Is it the governor or is it the Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick?
Well, I think everyone knows that Greg Abbott is a very smart man, and he's been very successful as our Attorney General, and that consistency will go into his role as governor.
And we got to go, but being smart doesn't mean that you can get the legislature to do what you want to do. The executive only has so much.
He has done more than any attorney general in the history of the state, and you will see those kind of reforms that he's talking about when he is governor as well.
We'll see if he can get it through the legislature.
That is consistent of him being
We're going to leave it right there. We'll be back in the next hour.
All right, we'll see you then for more good discussions. We appreciate it, guys. Thanks.